Hey, what's good, YouTube? How y'all doing, man? I just want to let y'all know this is Anthony from Rights Decisions channel, right? Where we discuss topics that we deal with every single day that's controversial, that things that's going on in our lives, that it affects us, but we don't know how it really affects us. And I just think sometimes we need to go to the bare root, the bottom line uh, the bottom line definition of what it really is. And the topic today we're going to talk about is abortion. Now, I know I ain't a man, I ain't a woman. I'm sorry, I am a man. I am a man. I'm tripping. Uh, I ain't no woman, right? I don't carry a child, right? I don't know what that entails. What your body is going through, your emotions, your feelings, having a child, um, getting the news of like, oh, you're pregnant, and how that makes you feel, and how that process in your life. Maybe it's a pregnancy that you didn't care for. It was unplanned. It was unwanted, or whatever the case may be, or if it was wanted, or whatever the case may be. We're gonna go through this process of how like abortion itself and the definition itself is by itself. And I believe, like, as human beings, we overcomplicate things. Add extra stuff to the definition of abortion, right? We add all these extra stuff that's not abortion, that's not even a part of that, and we add it to it, and then you're like, oh, that's why we should have abortions, or we shouldn't have abortions, or we should have abortions because of this information. We shouldn't have abortions because of this information. And it's like, bruh, like, what are we doing? Why are we continuing to go down this road where we're not defining things as they are, but we're adding extra layers and layers and layers to stuff that puts us in position to for women to have to make this decision, right? And that's what I'm trying to dive into. That's what this channel is about. It's about diving into stuff and actually looking at the root of everything, like the foundation of everything. Not about what's on the outside going in, but what's on the foundation. But please note, all right, this information, right, shared in this video, right, it's entertainment purposes, right? I'm not an expert. I'm not a guru. I'm not a rights activist, right? This is my personal opinion, right? It's Google information, right? That it might not even be all accurate, right? But people in the comments, my subscribers, right, my new subscribers, right? Hey, you come to this page, right? If I say something that is incorrect, inaccurate, right? Post in the comments, be like, hey man, that ain't it, right? That's not the real thing, right? Get me together, right? Oh, this is circumstances, this is things that may happen in my life, and that's why I made the decision, right? And it might be something a decision that you make, right? As a woman, you made a decision to get an abortion. Or maybe some man that you was with or whatever the case may be was like, hey, you get an abortion. I don't want this kid. So you get an abortion because they don't want the kid. Or they feel like they're forcing you to do something because they don't want to be in the kid's life. They don't want to have no child, right? All this other stuff that might add on to it, right? But that's different. That is separate from abortion, right? That somebody's talking to you crazy, right? Forcing you to do something, or you feel you have to do something based on your circumstances, your environment, all that stuff like that, right? That is a separate decision, right? From abortion. Abortion is a decision, and it may be based upon other decisions or other things that happen in your life for you to make this decision. And I'm not here to tell anyone what they should do or what they shouldn't do based on this topic. I'm just here to say, hey, let's slow down. Let's look at the information, and let's not group things together that has nothing to do with it. And also make the best decision, right, for life, right? Your life that may or may not come into this life, into this world, and make those best decisions not based on our feelings or our emotions or anything like that, based on the fact that, hey, this is a child that may be born, and they, should they be given the opportunity to live in this world, right? And you, the woman, right? Some women, right, believe that that's their decision. Some women don't believe that's their decision, right? Some women believe that, hey, you get pregnant, you having this baby, no matter what's going on, right? They're gonna have a baby. So those factors, there's a lot of factors that go into it. So bear with me, right? Don't trip on me or whatever, right? Don't trip on me. I don't want no smoke. Right? I don't want no smoke. I ain't trying to come at nobody, but that I'm just gonna go over the definition. I'm gonna go over like, you know, what's the procedure. I'm gonna go over some of the stigmas, all these things that kind of fall in line, and you make decisions for yourself, right? At the end of the day, right, you have to live in that body, right? You have to live in that body, walk with that body, and you have to live with whatever decision you make, good or bad, right? Everything has a constant. Some things have consequences. Some things have positive things that come about from it. That's the way it is, right? So don't trip on me. I don't want to smoke. Right? I don't want to smoke, right? I don't want no energy, right? I'm not here to talk on behalf of women. I'm not on here to tell women they should do this. I'm not here to say you go to hell because you you had an abortion. I'm down here trying to downplay you, judge you, tell you crazy and stuff like that, right? Because we all have made decisions that people agree with or they agree with or they don't agree with, right? People believe that it's a sin, but people believe it's not a sin. People believe, hey, this is what it is, all this stuff like that. So I'm not on here to tell nobody to do nothing, right? I'm not on here to tell you to do anything at all. I'm just on here just to talk about this topic, give me more understanding about the topic, and go from there. And hopefully, through all of that, listening to me and learning from me, that you make the good decisions, that you understand what comes with all of that, and not just make it off of the fact that, a mistake was made or whatever the case may be. All right, so case in point, right? Some women in general, believe that a man should not be talking about this topic or any topic that has anything to do with a woman. Some don't believe that, right? Just like, for example, right? Just say a woman, it's a woman's conference, right? Some women are upset if a man, right, is up there talking anything about anything ain't to do with any women's issues or women's things or women's anything like that. They don't care. They literally like, oh, they shouldn't be talking about that subject, right? Because they be like, oh, you don't see no woman at no man's conference or whatever the case may be, right? And there's underlying decisions, their thoughts processes on how that should look, all of these things, and people get mad about this stuff like that, right? So understand, bear with me, right? This video is raw, uncut, not edited. So relax, bro. Like chill out. I would spoke, right? I'm not telling nobody to do anything, right? Because I know how sensitive, I know how controversial, I know how crazy this subject is in general. So that's why I continue to say this stuff, because I'm like, yo, I understand. Like, I'm not here to tell nobody to do nothing, right? That's what I'm saying. So, but as humans, right? Some of us, we overcomplicate things, right? Like abortion is by itself, right? So sometimes, right? For example, right? If a woman, you know, is raped, and that's a terrible, terrible thing, right? Right. And from that point, right, she's dealing with trauma, right? Any person, whether it's raped or abused, is dealing with trauma. They're dealing with the whole situation that they were forced themselves upon. Now, a result of that, a pregnancy, you find out you're pregnant. Now, on top of the fact that you were raped, on top of the fact that you were disrespected, abused, right, forced upon, all this stuff like that. Now it's a child that may look like, take on characteristics, maybe genes, all of these things from a person that forced themselves upon you, right? Now, the rape is a separate thing. You still gotta go to counseling and deal with that. You still got to deal with that trauma. You still got to, over the years, months, years, or how much time it takes, right, to get over that trauma, that image of being forced, like all that stuff you still living with, right? Then Now abortion is on the table, like based on what happened to you, right? And now you're pregnant based on the fact that you were forced upon. Now a pregnancy is a result of that. So now we're gonna sit here. Now you're like, okay, well, oh my gosh, like now it's another decision. Do I keep the child? Right? Right? Is that even a that's even if that's even a decision to make? Do I keep the child? That's another decision, right? Now, do I keep the child? Okay, cool. That's one decision, right? Another decision. Do I terminate the pregnancy? That's another decision. Do I carry the child to a full term and then give up the baby up for adoption? Right? Do I go through this 9 month period of time, carry this child, all of this stuff like that to full term, all that stuff like that, right? And then give up for adoption? Or do I carry the child and keep the child anyway? Right? Knowing that maybe that these things are possible where, oh, the child might come out, right? The father, that father who abused me, took something from me, right? Now I'm reminding that person because that person has legal rights to the child. All these other factors that just pile on and pile on and pile on based on decisions you make, right? And the option, the easy option or whatever option might be abort the child. But stuff comes with that too, right? And you're trying to weigh this thing is like because you don't have that much time, right? Because you have to get abortion in a certain amount of time. So you're weighing these options and you got to make a quick decision. And when these emotions and these feelings and all these things that is going on because of this trauma and all this craziness that's going on, right? Now you're gonna make the decisions and now you can't process it. Then you're still processing the trauma. You're still processing the abuse, being forced upon, somebody forcing themselves. You still processing all of this on top of that, right? Now you throwing abortion in there. Now you're processing that, right? Because you have to navigate that, right? Because that comes with risk, that comes with things, all of these things that come with it. So we're like, okay, what we're gonna do? What can we do, right? So you gotta understand what's the just the baseline definition of abortion, right? Abortion is the deliberate termination of human pregnancy, most often performed during before the first 28 weeks of pregnancy, right? I'm gonna say that again. Abortion is a deliberate termination of the human pregnancy, mostly performed during the first 28 weeks of pregnancy, right? That's the baseline of what abortion is, right? That means somebody deliberately, right, terminated their pregnancy, right? Now, whatever reasons behind all of that, whether the situation behind that, yes, it's so many scenarios and so many reasons that come behind it, right? And you might feel justified based on whatever reason that is. And I'm not here to tell nobody, to no woman, like, oh, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. I'm not telling you to do squat. I'm just saying, like, this is the baseline what it is. I think we have to go back to the baseline, what that definition is, and build from there. We got to keep it simple and then build from there and understand what factors get us in a position where we got to make the decision. Because abortion only can be made, right, if you get pregnant, right? You. That's the only way. That's that is the only reason you like. Okay, I'm pregnant, right? I'm gonna terminate this pregnancy, right? Now your brain is like, okay, now you're thinking of things on why you should terminate this pregnancy. Factors. I'm too young. I'm not ready. Whatever reason. Right? It's so many factors. Right? Now, also defined as termination of a pregnancy by removing or expulsion of an embryo, right? Or a fetus, right? Abortions that occur without intervention are known as miscarriages or spontaneous abortions and occur in roughly 30 to 40% of all pregnancies. All right, let me read this again. Also defined as an early termination of pregnancy by removing or expulsion of an embryo or fetus, abortions that occur without intervention as known are known as miscarriages or spontaneous abortions occur in roughly the 30 to 40% of all pregnancies. Right? I Googled this information, I might be wrong, right? So they're lumping in, right? They're lumping in abortion. Right now, the definition I've said before, it said deliberate termination, right? Deliberate termination, right? So, in my understanding, right, in my opinion, understanding, a deliberate termination is that I chose to terminate this child pregnancy based on whatever, right? Just because I don't want the kid, whatever the case would be, I did, right? But they also are lumping in miscarriages and spontaneous abortions, right? Those things are not in the woman's control, right? It's not deliberate. It's literally, and they literally are putting this in percentages. They are accounting for roughly 30-40% of all pregnancies, right? So they're including abortions with people who just terminate their child, right? Based on whatever reason, right? Miscarriages, spontaneous abortions, spontaneous. Like, what does that mean? Spontaneous abortion. That means that you lost your child, right? And it's not categorized in a miscarriage, right? Now, they're pointing out miscarriages are part of the abortion criteria, something that you cannot control, right? It should not be in a definition. It shouldn't be a part of abortion definition at all. It's not in a woman's control if they have a miscarriage. It's so many other factors happens to make a woman have a miscarriage, and that is so traumatizing, right? That's or whatever. So like, why are we throwing that in abortions? Why is that even part of the thing? It's not acceptable, in my opinion. It's not acceptable that miscarriages are even in the conversation. A spontaneous abortion in the conversation. What is this one? Even on that spontaneous abortion, what does that mean? Right? That's probably a whole nother video by itself. Right? Spontaneous abortion, like they're not doing it on purpose, right? So miscarriages or spontaneous abortions, like those lumped in with abortions is ridiculous, in my opinion, and that should not be a part of the conversation, right? Now, this is what I'm saying. So abortion, based on whether the fetus can live without the womb, open doors for any conclusion on the choice to do it, right? But you have to start from somewhere, right? You have sperm and an egg that come together, right? And now at that point, right, it is building, right, right, a child, right, and forming a child, right. If you carry the child over the 9 months, right, to be healthy, right, a healthy child, and understand like other stuff, other factors that might hurt the child, based on it's so many other things. Like this video would be 2 hours long, right? Based on if I broke down every scenario, every situation that's anything to do with abortion, like it would be crazy, right? It's so much information out there, right? Healthy to full term, right? So it has to start from somewhere. So yes, right? An egg and his bird touch each other or whatever. You 2 weeks pregnant, right? Yes, it's no way that that baby that's growing, right, is going to survive outside the body. So that's why a baby is always inside the body, inside the womb, and it's carried for 9 months or so, because that is the reason why, like, so the baby can come out healthy and a healthy full human, right? That's what it's about. So we gotta stop with this, like, oh yes, outside the womb, yes, but it's the purpose of being in the womb. Otherwise, babies would just pop out whole. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, so it has to start from somewhere, right? It has to start. It's not. It's going to start as an egg, and then it's going, eventually grow arms and legs and eyes and a head and a neck and you know, uh, uh, you know, a penis or a vagina and all these other things, like it's gonna become a woman, it's gonna become a girl, a young baby girl, or a young baby boy, right? From the womb. Now that's before everybody jump into stuff like that. Like whatever the doctor feel you choose your gender, I ain't got nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying? We talk about abortion, we not talk about it somewhere else. So like, don't come at me. I want to smoke. I want to smoke. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so now based on the definition I said, right? We is that miscarriages is the spontaneous abortions like being a part of the criteria, right? We can't have that in part of the criteria because it's out of right the woman's control, right? So how do we get to the point where even like when a woman has to make the decision, like how we even get this point? If we're going based off that this is a deliberate act, right? That means two people are having sex, right? Or whatever the case may be, right? And they're coming together and having sex or whatever the case may be, right? And whether they know each other or they don't know each other, stuff like that, right? They're having sex, right? And we know, hey, if I have sex with someone, right, there's two possible things that can happen, right? Right. You can get STD, right? Or you can get pregnant. A pregnancy can happen, right? So the woman get pregnant, the man is like, oh, dang, I could be a daddy. All this stuff like that. So those two factors come into play, right? So let's start like understanding that we need to slow down, right? And get to know people and before we have sex with people. So when we get to a decision where, hey, we can have these conversations about having a child, and then a child comes, whether we felt the child should come quicker or earlier, stuff like that, abortion wouldn't even be on the table, right? Because we had a decision about having a child, all these things like that. So and then it opens the door thing. Like, oh, I could just take plan B or I could take other thing. And it's all these things, right? We add all these things. That's why as humans, we overcomplicate things. We add so much stuff to our thing and then we make it a justification for what we think, right? I understand, right? What I've heard, how what I've seen, right? Justification of abortion, right? Some women, not all women, some, not all, right? It's my body. It's my rights, right? I'm not ready to be a parent, right? I don't see the father, potential father, as being a good parent. Like I don't think he should be, you know, the parent. I don't think he I don't think I should bring this child into this environment, right? Maybe it's a poor environment. Maybe it's a violent and dangerous area that you live in. And it's like, man, I have to live through all this stuff and I don't want my child to live through it. And I get it. Like I understand like all these factors that come into play. But that's why we need to, if we're going to be with people, we're going to put ourselves in circumstances and situations that's going to best suit us, right? To have a child or not to have kids, right? We can make these decisions so abortion won't even be on the table because it's so complicated because all these other factors and all these other reasons on the justification on why they can do it or why they can't do it, right? And then we got the government involved and Roe versus Wade and all these things like that, and they throw so much stuff in it, right? So then it hurts other people. So they take a woman, right, who loses their child, right? Child dies. While they're carrying a child, right? They won't perform the procedure, right? Because it's lumped in. Miscarriages, like I said before, miscarriages and spontaneous abortions or whatever the case may be. But you still got this fetus, this embryo, whatever, all this stuff in your body as a woman, and you have to take it out. So it's in the criteria. So women, some women, right, have to cross states and stuff like that to get medical procedures, right, based on some the child that's dead in their body, right? And this could kill them if they have this dead person in the body, right? It's like I don't get the thought process, right? So now doctors can't perform this procedure based on that because people are taking the deliberate definition of abortion and lumping it and putting miscarriages, spontaneous things, all these things around abortion. and they're lumping it together. And now this shit is crazy, right? But if you like this video, like we're talking, we're just having a conversation, right? Right. This is not the most comfortable thing I can talk about, right? I'm literally like, I'm out of my mind because it's like I just want to make sure, right, that I understand it more, and I understand what people are going through, what women are going through, the best of my ability, and to understand what that is, because in my mind, before I did this video, before I done, I'm like, abortion, like why would you even do that, right? Why would you even do that? It's a child is born, because I understand, like I have been in relationships before and whatever the case may be, and this would be, I haven't been with people, right, and they probably go, oh, this is not a suitable partner, right? But we're having sex, but I'm not a suitable partner, right? She ends up getting pregnant. Then a month later she'll, oh, I'm pregnant, and then a month later she'll like, oh, I'm not pregnant no more, because she went and just got an abortion, right? And she like, oh, well, you don't have no choice in that matter. And I'm like, okay, right? So now I'm like, dang, I only have a possibility for that. And there's some men out here who, well, they have with a woman like, well, you gonna get it. You're not gonna have this baby, right? They force it like you ain't gonna have this baby. So they might do things to force that woman to have to literally lose her child, like whatever the case may be. So we gotta understand, right? I'm coming from a place where I've been on the other side of it, and, and I had a woman literally tell me I had no decision. I had no decision in what she was doing, because it was her body, her whatever it could be. And okay, you know what I'm saying? Like I can't go back in the past and deal with that, but I understand. All right, so I understand that that's what the choice that she felt she had to make, right? And I can go scenario of scenario. I can go over every possibility or whatever the case may be. But that's not to change the fact that that happened in the past and this is the future, and I got to move on from it, right? And that's what it is, right? So these are the things, right? So it's physical effects, right? The individual, right? There's certain things that may or may not happen, may not happen, whatever case may be. That's just what it is, right? Because this has nothing to do with the topic or anything like that. But we gotta understand, right? It's a physical thing, right? If a person smokes, right? Everybody knows smoking is not good for you, right? And I'm not lumping this in with abortion, stuff like that. So you be like, oh, whatever. But I'm just using it as a basic example, right? Smoking, right? We understand that people like literally like they smoke, right? They whatever. They know it's bad for them, right? Now I had a scenario, I had a situation, right, happen, right? Uh, I was with a coworker or whatever. Like, man, like he was spending so much money, like just smoking cigarettes and stuff like that, packs and packs a day, right? And I'm like, it's like you have this habit and it's eating your pockets and all that stuff like that, but you still smoking. Like, why? Or whatever case may be, right? And I'm like, this it can hurt your body, your lungs, and cancer, and all these things, right? And people know these things, right? They don't care, right? They don't care, right? Because they're gonna use that one example. They're gonna use their grandfather. Oh, my grandfather smoked since he was 15. He's 95. He ain't got no health problems. We gotta understand we're all different and we're all individuals. We all deal with stuff differently, right? A woman, some women can have abortion and not blink an eye and keep it moving. And some women have abortion and they're losing their freaking mind. Or they're trying to get pregnant again, right? They're like, oh, we had an abortion, dog, what happened to the baby? Whatever the case may be, right? It's so many layers to this that that's what I'm saying. It's so much layers to this. We don't understand what's going on. So, 4 areas of potential harm, right? Just 4 areas, right? Potential harm, right? It might affect the infertility, right? You might mess with your so the second time you have a child, right? You're making it worse for you to have a child when you really want to have a child, right? Right, stillbirths, right? Dies in your womb, and they're still lumping this in abortion, spontaneous abortion, stillbirths. That a baby dies not because you did something, right? Right now, they're still lumping this in there, right? So now this thing now they're talking about, oh, you got stillbirths, right? Complications of a pregnancy, right? Preterm birth, right? Small you know, the baby preemies. Yeah, start having preemies, right? Health risks, right? Breast cancer, right? Right? Feelings of, mental health stuff, right? That, some women say, hey, I had an abortion, and they keep it moving, right? But there's feelings of relief, right? Maybe guilt, grief, right? It slows down your life expectancy, right? You have a premature death, right? You could die early. These are some things. I'm saying some women won't probably want to experience none of this stuff. Some of them probably will experience some of this stuff, right? Right? Common fit, right? So you might bleed more, right? You might have more cramping, right? You might have more. You got a nausea, vomiting, right? Right? Breast tendency, fatigue, right? Potential red flag, but they're rare, right? These are rare stuff that happen, right? An infection, right? An incomplete abortion, right? Heavy bleeding, hemorrhage, right? Uterine perforations, cervical injury, right? Just to name a few, right? Anesthesia related complications, right? They're rare. Like some of these are rare. They're pretty much rare, right? At the same time, right? If we do our best, right, as the man and the woman, right, to make sure that we're doing what's supposed to be doing, our best and doing right, abortion won't be on the table, right? Because there's so many things that come with that. And why put yourself through that? Why add extra things that you got to deal with just in life on a general basis to your life? Abortion is another one, right? Where it's another life that's involved, right? Whether that life can live without the womb at a certain time frame while you're doing your pregnancy or whatever it may be, it's still another life, right? A potential life that's supposed to come into this world. And we have to do our best to make sure that we don't just bring people into this world just to bring them to this world. Now abortion's on the table because we decided to do something, right? Have sex or whatever the case may be, right? And now you have to think. Now, I'm not talking about right. So abuse, molestation, incest, all these other factors, right? That's separate. Like, and then, right, that leads you to a position where you have a decision has to be made whether I should terminate this pregnancy or not, right? Because of what happened. Now you're pregnant, right? Because that could still happen and you don't get pregnant, right? So we have to understand like that's a layer to a layer to a layer. Now, pregnancy is on the table. Now, pregnancy is on the table. Now, abortion is on the right. Now you feel abortion needs to be on the table, right? Because these factors happen and this happened and this was pregnancy will result. Now abortion is on the table. So that's the thing, right? As humans, we overcomplicate. We completely overcomplicate things. We make it so we add all this extra stuff on there, but understand like this is a deliberate act, right? It's not a abortion is not a miscarriage. It's not a stillbirth. It's not a spontaneous what they call it spontaneous abortion. It's not a spontaneous thing that you lose a child. This is a complete decision of one person saying, "Hey, I want an abortion," or two people coming together and saying, "Hey, they're agreeing that a woman should have an abortion." Right? There's so many other areas, so we just have to be careful and understand that there's so many other layers to come up to this decision, right? So we have to understand what that is and not overcomplicate this situation because it's so many variables that come with it, right? So, and then it's certain situations of where you are. That's where we got Roe versus Wade. Like they overturn Roe versus Wade, and you're like, oh, what are they doing, right? Because they layered so much stuff in it, so it's confusing, right? To me, it's confusing, right? So your situation. So you want to have an abortion, baby. You can't have an abortion because you're in a state that don't allow it. So you gotta go to another state. You gotta go to what? And then you might be close to the point where you can't even have an abortion, right? Then that might put some other factors, but you might do something to hurt yourself even more because you like, oh, I can have an abortion. I'm past the time, so I might do something else. So it keeps adding other decisions that are dangerous to the person's health, right? Or whatever, right? But if you enjoyed this video so far, right? Simple plug, right? Please like, share, subscribe, right? Support helps, right? So I can create more content like this So hit the bell, right? So you can hear some of these things, right? All stuff like that, right? So we have a little bit of societal perceptions and stigma, right? Like it's if negative is least of shame, isolation, right? It's psychological, right? It's all these things, right? So it's all these things that we already deal with. We already deal with, just for example, social judgment. We already deal with that in our regular lives. We're already dealing with that in our regular lives, right? Right. We're being judged on a regular basis by our looks, by all this other stuff like that, right? Our friends, right? Your mama might be like, yo, you gonna have this kid. You know what I'm saying? You like, nah, I don't want this kid, right? And so you being judged by your family, your friends, your community, right? If you choose to have abortion, now they're like, oh, now he's looking at you crazy. Now nobody supported me, and all these other things that go on with it. And we deal with that stuff on a regular basis. So we need to eliminate some of these choices, some of these things that we make, decisions that we make. We need to eliminate some of these decisions we make ahead of time, so we won't even have to make this decision on the back end, right? Because abortion at the end of the day is a, for the most part, right? Because it's a deliberate, based off the definitions of being deliberate. I miscarriage and all this other stuff that go behind it, right? It's a reaction to something that happened to me, and a result is a pregnancy that I did not want, that she did not want, whatever case may be. That this person did not want, and now abortion is on the table based on whatever factors that led up to this, right? Right. Individually, they might feel shame, right? It might be religious issues. It might be religious beliefs, right? It might be impact on the mental health, right? Barrier, right? It's always these barriers where certain medical care supports are not available, right, for abortion, right? Or they're so available in the area that you live, right? It's like it makes it easier for you to make the decision, right? And all these things that go with it, right? So we got the laws, right? Your state laws, right? Social norms, right? Some people think this is a normal thing. Hey, if you don't want the child, you get an abortion, right? As this is a normal thing and it's okay, right? Do you, right? And some people think it's okay. Some people don't believe in it at all, and say, hey, this is wrong. This is whatever the case may be, right? But we gotta understand, we gotta eliminate some of the stuff so we won't have abortion on the table, right? And it will be left in this extreme circumstances, right? It's gonna be left to that. It's gonna be left to that. Okay, I got trauma. I got all these other things that kind of flow into that. So now I don't need to make this decision to have this abortion based on all these factors, right? Or because I just don't want this pregnancy, so this was gonna happen, right? So it's so much all these things, right? We have to understand, right? We have to have open conversations, like these conversations like this that I'm having, right? We need to have these open conversations, right? To have an understand, right? That some of the stuff can be avoided, right? Not saying like some of the stuff can abortions for the most part can be avoided, right? By own personal decisions, right? And other stuff that happen outside of that, right? We gotta understand. That's what I'm saying. They keep lumping this stuff in there. 30 to 40% miscarriages, spontaneous things, right? Stillbirth. They're lumping that in the statistics and the numbers of abortions for people who just have an abortion, right? Because they just don't want to have the child. Not because this trauma happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, right? And now this decision is on the table based on these other factors. So we got to slow down, understand that yeah, if you just out here just have an abortion just to have one, right? There's some underlying things that you need to do with it because I understand, right? It's so much stuff that goes thing, right? So we need to slow down and look at the stuff and not overcomplicate things. It's a deliberate act. Abortion by itself is a deliberate act. It's not other things that's out of your control, right? And we need to have a lot of support services, right? To have these conversations, right? And not to say, oh, well, you don't have abortion. Well, you need to, well, you ain't adopted. You don't even adopt the kids. that's living, and all these other things that we say. Well, you don't want to adopt the kids that's living. You don't want to adopt the kids that's living, or whatever the case may be. I don't have the resources, or I don't have this, I don't have that. Right? We pile all these things together, right? When at the end of the day, right, were we able to take care of ourselves? Right now now we may be bringing a child into the world. So now we're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna support a child because I don't have the finances or the resources. I don't have the support. I don't have what I need. But it's like, hey, let's eliminate some of the decisions beforehand. So this decision won't even have to be on the table, right? It doesn't have to be a part. Like it's so hard in life that we live. Like women in general, like it's hard for y'all in general. So why add extra stuff and complicate more things to your life, right? When you don't have to, when it should be, if you want to have children, it should be a complete choice to have children, right? In an environment that you want to have children. If you don't want to have the children, you need to be doing every preventative measure not to have kids because you don't want to have kids. So this decision won't even be on the table, right? You do everything about it. Now things happen, whatever the case may be, however you want to put it. But we have to do everything possible so this decision will have to be made because this is not an easy decision. This ain't like I'll just wake up one day, okay, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to have. Like a woman, right? This is not an easy decision to have abortion. Like I don't think a woman just waking up one day, okay, I'm just gonna have abortion. That whole they like literally like it's I know it ain't easy. I know that in their minds, the emotional and the strain and all these things, these factors that go into it, right? And feel like they probably don't have a safe space or somebody they can talk to or a support system and all these other things, right? They feel like they're in this thing by themselves, right? And nobody should feel that way, right? So with all this stuff going on, right, is you got women's rights, gender equality, all these things, right? And the restrictions on abortion, right? Having access to these things, right? Right. It can look like, right? If just like the laws when they're making laws that say, hey, certain states you can't have abortion, you can't have this, whatever the case may be, right? Right. Gender is discriminate, right? Because women, right? Most women are being affected. That the women are being affected, right? There's a one like abortion, not having an abortion, be able to have an abortion, or whatever the case may be. The women are being affected, right? They're the ones that are being affected. Like as me, I'm not being affected. I, what I'm saying? It's like I just provided, some women will tell me like, oh, you just provided the sperm, right? To initiate me being pregnant. You know what I'm saying? So, right. I might not even be a part of that conversation, right? Right. So, and we might not have the education, the resources that we need, right, to make a good decision. And we don't feel we have that. Maybe we do, maybe we don't, right? So it's increased labor force, right? And they understand this, right? So they believe some of this stuff is labor force because you got this one, right? If a woman has a child, right, in certain professions, some professions, right? If they have a child, they're out of the loop. Just for example, right? They work a corporation job, right? And they're trying to move up the ladder and stuff like that, right? And it's based on how many clients they have and all this stuff like that. And then they have excuse me, and they get pregnant through that whole situation, right? They get pregnant, whatever, right? It's some guy who don't have the responsibilities or whatever might take their position, their spot, right? And then now they're stuck. Now they're like, oh, whatever. So they get pregnant. Oh, my career, right? So they're thinking about their career. So they may have an abortion basically because they look, I'll, I want to move up the ladder of my career, and I don't want to, right? And that's some decision reasons behind it, right? So it's like that's why you have to plan in the process and have a, a respectable partner that you're together with, right, to make the best decision, right, for your lives. And abortion should be on the table. It should everything should be the way it should. And if you feel that you gotta go to corporate ladder, you should have kids. And if you feel you want to have kids, then you right these planning and stuff like that, they need to have you know a decision to be made, right? And you gotta understand, right? So, and then if we shift a little bit, right, and we go to like, it's the human rights perspective, right? Right. So you're saying like it's bodily autonomy, right? Bodily autonomy, right? So it's saying like, hey, if you deny abortion, abortion access to have an abortion, right? It violates the woman's bodily autonomy, right? Their right to make decisions with their own bodies and reproductive health, right? And some women believe this, that hey, this is my body, this is my decision, this is my everything, right? Right? Privacy, right? Reproductive freedom, right? Choose whether to have abortion is a fundamental right, right? Related to privacy and reproductive freedom, right? Discrimination, right? Restriction of abortion, right? It affects women for the most part, right? Because the woman, right, is the one carrying the child, right? It's the one who has to carry the child, right? Through everything, right? Through everything. And just like I said before, we cannot continue to lump miscarriages and all that stuff that goes in it. That's the problem with this stuff, right? That's where we have Roe versus Wade. The thing is, miscarriages, stillbirths, all that stuff is lumped in with abortion, right? It's not a clear line. So if a woman, right, has a miscarriage, right, and the fetus, the embryo, whatever case it is, still in the womb, they gotta take the womb, they gotta take it out, right, because it's dead. They got to take that dead thing out of their womb, right? And some doctors they won't do the procedure, right? Because it's lumped in with abortion. So that's why when these laws and stuff that are made, right, it's all this other stuff that's intertwined with it, right? That's not abortion, specifically, right? It's not abortion. Right? Miscarriage, spontaneity is not abortion. So you gotta stop lumping that stuff in. Like those disparities, you gotta understand it's affecting women, right? Because they're the ones who's carrying the child, right? So it's a responsibility on every person to build relationships, to build real love, communication, right? Not having sex, right? Understanding what the risks are. If I have sex, this is what happen, right? I may be pregnant, right? And I might not be in a position where this is suitable for a child to be. So I need to prevent those things from happening, right? And that's on both sides. Man, you shouldn't be laying up with a woman, right? If you ain't ready to be no dad, if you're not ready to be a father, you're not ready to accept that responsibility, right? It goes hand in hand. A woman shouldn't be laying up with a woman if you're not ready to be a mom. This is or the timing or whatever the case may be, right? We have to both, right? Two people, right, that can make a baby, the case may be, right, has to make those decisions and build relationships ahead of time so we won't have promotion be on the table. Now, I might be wrong, right? People in the comments, let me know. I might be wrong. I might not know what I'm talking about. And I get it. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to play this game. I might not even know what I'm talking about. Correct me in the comments. Say, hey, bro, what you doing, right? But also, right, please like, share, subscribe, right? It supports the content, right? It gives me a greater understanding of certain topics and certain things that we deal with on a regular basis. So please help a brother out, right? Right? And just with anything, right? Resolve, right? This is what I'm saying. Body autonomy with women, right? The woman has the right to decide whether to continue pregnancy, regardless of how it occurred, right? That's the basis of life. Hey, they get to make a decision on what they want to do, right? Right? And that's what I'm saying, right? So it's like consensual sex does not imply agreement to be a parent, but consensual sex, right? For some people, understand, for some people, it's consensual sex, right? You know the risk. It's a potential of pregnancy or FCD comes into play, or other factors that come into play, right? Because you know, as a woman, you got to carry the child, right? You have to carry the blunt of the birth, the blunt of all of that. So you need to be doing your best, not just be having consensual sex with people who you know and don't know, that could easily become a parent, and now you're in a position where this person you don't know, and now y'all trying to build a relationship and get to know each other, or whatever the case may be, and then you're expecting this person to be a good parent, or you like, you know what, I'm gonna get an abortion because I know they ain't gonna do what they supposed to be doing, right? Because you don't know them, you don't know what they're gonna do or gonna do, right? All these things come into factor, and I'm not here judging. I'm not here like that. It's some people, right? It's not all women. It's some women who do this or whatever the case may be. And I'll be wrong, right? I'm coming from a man's perspective, a man thought process. So I might not know what I'm talking about. So women in comments help me know, like, bro, you don't know what you're talking about, and you need to chill out or whatever. Do you? Okay? Right. So, yeah, this is like this topic, right? Is so complex, right? This topic is so much more information. Right? I probably could make a part 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, right, on this topic, right? But the next time I probably do a video, right, or about abortion, I'm gonna bring a woman in, and I'm literally gonna bring a woman in to kind of break everything down, right, the right way, right? Because I believe like if a woman is saying, hey, these are the circumstances, these are the things that's gonna help topic kind of thing, right? So the next time, if that happens, whatever the opportunity happens, then I'm gonna go with that. But I appreciate y'all, right? I appreciate y'all for listening to me. Um, you gotta understand, right? Remember, right? Everybody's feelings and emotions are valid, right? But we can't let our feelings and our emotions or what happens to her in our life lead us to whatever decision we're gonna make, right? I understand, right? It's your right, it's your body, it's all these factors, right? And I'm not here to change anybody's mind, right? But I just want to give, at the end of the day, I want to give you a different perspective or outlook, or maybe thinking about it more, maybe assessing the risks, the issues that arise in making any life decision. Because having an abortion is a life decision. Like, it's something that's not just going to just disappear. It's something that you have to deal with for, you know, years or whatever, a part of your life, a chunk of your life, right? And it affects women majority, right? And it affects some men too, because some men probably, oh, I wanted to be a dad, right? And I even get the right to choose or be a part of the decision making, and that affects them too, right? It doesn't affect them as much because they don't have to carry the child, but it affects them, whatever, right? So we have to understand that laws have something to do with it. Our own personal situations have something to do with it. But I thank y'all for riding with me. And people that made it this far, I appreciate y'all. I just want y'all to help me out, man. It doesn't cost a thing to like, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for future content. I love y'all guys. I just wanted to make sure that I love y'all guys, man. And rock with me, man. Please like, share the channel, subscribe. All right, be safe.